I'm a co-founder of a company called 510 Visuals. We have been doing bespoke video and lighting custom products for the last 7 years. I've been in the LED video production space for about 20 years now, going from touring and live events into fixed installation and now starting to see more very specific bespoke implementation of product.
Matthew Ward, and I work for Fuse Technical Group, which does a lot of virtual production and touring work. My focus there is on emerging technologies. Been in the LED industry since the late 90s. So some of the first surface mount screens and founding one of the first creative LED companies, Element Labs.
It's my great honor to invite Mass and Ben B Cinematic Group have this kind of an interview. So I have a 25 years experience and we provide a turnkey solution for all kinds of the application. So now today we can discuss like the LED future.
I think there's the costs and the advantages. You get the most out of this environment if you do the pre-production work, if you do the planning, and you really understand your content pipeline before you get in the space. So there is more pre-production, but I think once you get into a virtual production environment with an LED volume, you do get that immediate feedback. And that's before you get like the actors feeling like they're more in that environment. And so you can constantly tweak. There was a video for a production in the UK, Doctor Who, a very old show, yeah. And they just did a virtual production set in Wales. And they were talking about just the ability to adjust the backgrounds in real time. And they would have done that in post, they would have done that afterwards. But afterwards, like eliminating a mountain from the background, that's wasted money.
Yes.
And if you can do that on site and actually play with all those elements in the Z-axis, yes, and play with your parallax and get your framing right, I mean, that has a lot of value in terms of just moving the production forward and getting the cinematographer and the director and the producers the shots they want. I think you need to bring in basically young filmmakers, young producers, and block out time for people to play with this. If you don't have people with fresh eyes, yeah, you're not really going to understand the full capability, yeah, of the system. And I think that's a big part of it. One of the funniest things about a lot of the early XR productions was the fact that everybody built video game scenes that looked like real scenes. And you're in a video game. It can look like anything. Mm-hmm. There could be no gravity. Things can float in the air. I think there's a lot of different things going on because we have virtual production and XR studios, and in the US and Europe, these are looked at as very different things. Virtual production's a much more broad market in terms of film and TV production. And generally, for instance, there's not a floor in most of the virtual production applications that we do. In XR, we're seeing that still get a lot of use in commercial and in music. And I think both of these markets started to ramp up heavily in 2019 and 2020. The Mandalorian and various XR projects, the Katy Perry video on American Idol. And everybody ran in. And what we're seeing now is people are now familiar with it, and they're starting to make decisions that make it much more personal to their production. For their requirements, they're using it in different ways. And so I think the market's starting to be more realistic about the role of particularly LED volumes in film and TV, and they're starting to use them in more integrated ways. So I think we're in the sort of the second wave of adoption. how do we utilize that power for good?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different opinions there, and that we really don't know. It's a topic I've been following since 2015.
Yes.
And I mean, I know some wonderful artists in that space, but those are fine artists, not artists for VFX.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see what we saw with other technologies, which is people rushing in and doing basically easy stuff that starts to look the same, but you can do it. So I think that's a problem. But if you think about the complexity of a large volume and integrating that scenery and all the digital content and all the sensor data and all the lighting, and you want control of all of that, AI is going to be a really good bridge between the very human creative team and the increasingly complex scenery. And that's a role where I think AI can be very, very good. And I do believe there are people who are working on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true probably for all implementations of AI. I guess in any way, us as human beings are starting to utilize this technology. As you mentioned, there will be people who will rush in and use it for things that are kind of wasteful, and we're going to discover as a species how to hopefully compensate for that and do it in a way that's still healthy for all of us. But as you saw with all of the the strikes, all the things that happened over the last year, there are real people that are struggling and challenged by this technology in a way, and so it is important that we all consider the weight of it in the context of how it, affects people's livelihoods, and also more specifically affects the story, the impact of the art that we do. I think that at the end of the day, the goal of this technology is to improve and make it easier for us to do things. And there maybe sometimes I struggle a little bit with the idea of more volume and too much of something, but I do also believe that there is kind of it lowers the threshold and the barrier for people to come in and experiment and play with it, which is really wonderful. The idea that we could give a paintbrush to somebody who might not necessarily be able to have access to it, but doing it through a different medium, they might be able to tell an interesting story and something that might have a great impact on people. So I think it does have a lot of value in terms of improving our ability to communicate.
Yeah.
No, I think that's true, and I think you see limitations in AI, like a lot of the systems now are not deterministic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you do a scene, you run that shot, and you want to run that shot again. Hopefully you recorded your background,
Exactly.
because if you do that again, it may not be the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of little details that we need to work out.
Yeah.
But I think that the part that resonates with me is I do 3D design. I cannot draw. There is nothing that will make me a good artist with my hands. But 3D design tools mean that I can make a product rendering that looks exactly like the product rendering coming out of SolidWorks, coming out of the tooling software. So it opened up a door for me. Computers opened up that door for me. And for some people, that is what AI is going to do.
Yeah.
I think because today we talk about RGB, RGB come to market, I think nearly 100 years. RGB.
It's old.
Yeah, three corners. So I think the next coming years, innovation should be like a four-corner RGB sign or RGB amber or something like that to make it more wonderful. In fact, like RGB sign, the color space is P3 1.5 times. Yeah. We say when you saw the image, you say, "Wow!" That's the future. I think is the one. Second is like a fan picked beach. Today like 2.6, but we don't have this so big, stage. How we do it? We rooming. How to say the picked beach, the small scale. We use a small light, and we can make my own in the XR stage. I think in coming years we should focus young generation. One is thinking. What is it? Like this young guy said, use AI with a CreateLED. Yeah, I ask something, presentation come out. And I have an interactive with you. Yeah.
Matthew and Ben, do you satisfied with the future that Mr. Cheng described about the LED? Since I think you two are customers.
Yeah, well,
You have the power to judge that.
I think now Master saying what time I can install one screen, 163 in my house. I can do gaming, do designing.
Yeah.
That's another trend for the home because as today is a home is the product like a projector or LCD. You know,
Yeah.
I think the coming years happening is 130 or 163 inch at home because we need big to have a big view, window to wall, and have a big, how to say, immersive experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For example, like I watch a movie, I can lie down,
Yeah.
watch the movie.
I think that also changes the type of productions you can do. If you have a room at home where one wall
Yes.
is a screen,
Yes.
your ability to be immersed in that content
Yes.
it's very, very different than sitting and watching a little box on a cabinet.
You can teach your kid with that screen.
Yes, you could teach your kid with that screen if you can get the parents off of it. If you can get the parents away and not watching ping pong on that screen, then you can teach your kid. But no, I think it changes educational experiences. Kids can have a much more immersive but also physical interaction with something in a room, and I think entertainment has to change to take advantage of what happens when modular screens become a household item. I don't think we're quite ready for that. I think the all-in-one screens are a step, and larger screens and larger, more immersive rooms is sort of the next step.
I mean, I would agree with that. I think that there is, at least for me, and certainly
You are looking for creative usage for the LED, right?
not just creative usage, but I think that it's really important to understand why we develop the technology we develop and what is the reason for any of this stuff. And at the end of the day, that means that there has to be some kind of a human connection to it, some logic. Maybe it is a wildly innovative designer who really wants to just create something beautiful, and that's wonderful and great. Sparks joy and wonder, and people can look at it and be like, this is incredible. But I do think that that audiences are starting to ask more from innovators and creators, and some of what needs to happen is that the technology needs to start becoming something that is a little bit more interactive. And I don't mean that in the conventional sense of I wave my hand and I see something on the screen, but there is like an actual principled use case for it. I think people are starting to develop those concepts now. People that are creating experiences are starting to understand how they can do that at large scale and in a larger format. And once you step out of the rectangle and you start to think a little bit more about a holistic environment, you are able to tell story and connect with audiences and people in a way that is very different, and I think a lot more compelling at the end of the day. So I hope that is a big part of the future, is that, you know, we start to see it implemented in environment and space a lot more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like 50 years ago, you know, Steve Jobs said that I wish one day everybody have the computer.
Yeah.
At that time, IBM said, no way.
Yeah.
This is industry. Cannot be personal. But today, it happened, right? Everybody have. So I think in coming future, the LED for John at home, I think is a part of the life. For example, you like to design. You can use AI very interactive. For example, every day morning, I wake up at 6 o'clock, all the information, news I want, already listed. You want to do something with the screen. This is kind of part of the life. I think it definitely will be happen. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's the stuff I can answer and the stuff I'm not allowed to answer.
It's tough. There's a lot of really cool stuff. That's what we can. That's,
Yeah,
I think at
yeah,
least we
yeah.
could say definitely. It's
But
yeah,
I think you're seeing more automation. It's obvious that camera robotics is becoming a much more substantial.
Yes.
When we talked about deterministic content,
Yes.
it's also about deterministic camera movement.
Yeah.
And so it used to be that camera robotics was a very sort of an edge specialty thing. But now I think Nikon bought one of the big companies. I think somebody else bought one of the other ones. These robotic systems are becoming much more standard because they integrate into that 3D volume.
Yeah.
And basically, if you look at any aspect of that volume, innovation is possible.
Yeah.
You have spatialized sound, you have spatialized light, you have spatialized video. It's each one of these things, but it's also the sensors, the camera movement, how the production deals with all these things. That also needs to be spatialized.
Yes.
We need to think about all of these things in a 3D volume. And I mean, you were talking about the computing era, and it's like we're in the spatial computing era. We've been here for a while. And if you look at phones and the amount of sensors on phones or sensors on my watch, all of this is making it more accessible. Just the volume of smartphone sales means the components and the computing is far more accessible for our world, where we borrow technology. We don't tend to invent technology. I think we are still at an early point, and if you look at AI, there are artists who were able to get access to AI relatively early, and they really gave us signposts to what's possible that the scientists who create AI may not have really understood. And I don't think XR is different than that. I think we're at a stage where the technology is becoming more accessible. Just having this stage here means that people are going to be able to experiment and try new things. And I think you need that willingness to try new things to really discover what's possible. But we're still very, very early in the adoption of the technology. So.
Good. Good.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, like Cheng was saying, it's new here. Maybe we've seen test cases, we've seen some maturing of the use case. People have led it in a certain direction, but I think that it's the very early beginning of this thing, and so definitely it's great that we have a baseline and a foundation of how it can be used. But I think that there is so much more discovery in how the technology can be used to tell story, to sell products, to connect with customers, and to ultimately share connection and experience in a way that we couldn't do without this technology. So I think that it's probably really exciting for everybody, and I'm excited to see what comes from more adoption of this in the smart chain.
I love this technology.
I love LED.
Yeah, CreateLED.
CreateLED.
Wait, did we?